Hi, Connor.
Hello.
I hope there's more than you and me. I was a little late getting going here. Oh, look at that. We have lots of people. I was going to see if there's anybody. Oh, I may have to. There she is. Yay. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. I was a tad late getting going here. The good news is we have a quorum. We seem to be not having so far Ed or David or Jeff.
I'm here.
But oh, I'm sorry. Who don't we have? Ed, David, or Michael? Sorry about that, Jeff. So hi, everybody.
Hi.
And let me pull up, juggling a lot of things lately. So let me just get out of this and pull up what I want to inbox. Because the main thing I do have, let me just have it here and alter the font. Maybe that's better. And we'll give it a moment. I'll leave it at 7 p.m. Okay. Alrighty. So while we have a quorum, and I'm going to turn my computer so hopefully you can see me. And Ed did not say he was not going to be here, and he knows about it. And he gave his input. Oh, we can talk about his input even if he's not here, because he put it in an email. I hadn't asked him yet if I could send it to the ZRC, and so I didn't yet send it out to everybody. So the purpose of this meeting, I will call this to order. And I see Connor is on mute, but that's okay. So we have Jude, we have Jeff, we have Connor, we have me, we have guests, are Kirk and Deborah. So we do have a quorum, so I will call us to order. And the only topic, I didn't send that agenda, but I did send out 2 emails that said that our topic today is, oh, there's David, yay. Hi, David, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yay, perfect. Well, welcome. So I'm just calling the meeting to order. So we don't have Ed and we don't have Michael, but we have Ed's input. So that's what we're going to cover. So the purpose of this meeting today, I didn't send out an agenda, but I did send out 2 emails that said that the agenda topic of this meeting is to go over the ZRC. Oh, there's Ed. Yay. Excellent. Hi, Ed. Yay. So, I'll restart. So the purpose of the only agenda item for today is talking through the ZRC feedback. What do I want our official feedback to be to the Housing Oversight Task Force documentation? So Ed sent me an email earlier today. I hadn't sent it to the whole ZRC. I should have asked Ed if that was okay. It was probably okay, but we can review it. I can share my screen and review it. So that's what my plan will be. I know I have input from Ed. I do also know that Jeff and Michael are part of the Housing Oversight Task Force. So Jeff, just real quick, I know when you do go at 7, is there any information that you have that you want to be part of the official Zoning Revision Committee response?
These are just a few things. So first of all, I'm going to be gone at 7 just for a short time. We just have to do a quick motion at the library board meeting. I think that I have some minor edits and interpretations, and I want to just go over those at some point in time. Just making sure the language is very clear. I think there's some areas that can be cleared up where there might be confusion and where it might be left to interpretation given the current language there. I have a generic comment, which is about gender. we should go through the document and clean up our gender. There are many places it says his. For example, the subdivision shall install at his expense the necessary blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
That's throughout the documents. Once in a while it's for her, which is better, but we should just change them all to there.
Right. Okay.
That's something that the New York State Legislature is finally getting around to doing in our state laws.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, you know, someday I'll be a committee person, not a committee man.
Exactly. Someday,
Along the lines of your
do you
point.
know Kevin Cahill is sponsoring that bill?
Yay. Yay. So good. That's good. So, okay. So now a question to you, Jeff, about the minor edit. So I can add that one comment about cleaning up gender in an email to the Housing Oversight Task Force. The minor edits and interpretations and clearing up confusion. Is it your plan to submit those? And I'm okay. You know, in some cases, people are submitting things as an individual. In some cases, they're submitting them as a member of the ZRC. It's fine with me if when you submit it as a member of the ZRC, even though it might be an email just from you that says, but I know that we now have a Word document of the proposed law. So we as the Housing Oversight Task Force. So Jeff, might you be putting your tweaks as edits in a master document, or might you be sending an email saying page this, change that, page that, change this? How are you thinking you're going to get your minor edits and interpretations?
I'm open to suggestions of what the best way to do it is. I don't have a preference either way. You know, so I mean, for example, so I guess I don't know what the best way to do it is, Laura.
Well, would you have 10 or 100? If you had 100, you would probably need to do it in the document because, what's that?
Like 5.
Yeah, if you have 5, and Kirk and Deborah are welcome to tell me if you think, because, you know, and we're all here together. Kirk and Deborah are here really to listen to what everybody's input is. We're not planning to give answers in this session. If they do have answers and if they can help the conversation, certainly I'll welcome them to do so. But they're really here to listen because we have our Housing Oversight Task Force meeting tomorrow at 10. And by them being here to listen, they don't have to wait for me to document what people said at this meeting, and they might get it at 5 minutes to 10 or after the meeting tomorrow. This way they're here to hear firsthand what people say. But decisions about direction do tend to come from the 7-member Housing Oversight Task Force. So we can have a lot of conversations and clarification happen here. If there's a decision and a change in direction, usually we'd like the 7-member task force to be thinking that through together. So we'll just see where this meeting goes. But my answer, if you have 5, is I would think an email, because there is the, I think it's the zoning revision. I have to look up what the actual email is. But if it's just 5, I would think an email that says page this, change this to that would be manageable on your part and would be helpful because it would be coming in through the requested process, which is send an email to the ID that was set up, the town ID set up. So okay. I would think if it's just 5, send it an email.
I guess while we're here, I just want to talk about it and make sure that I'm clear on my memory of what the intention was versus what the language says.
Okay.
And so if you have time, can you go to 202-42B?
Okay, so I need to pull up the, I'm a little slow here.
42, it's on page 72, I believe, if it's.
Okay, I'm gonna need to find it, and let me find it because I would have sent it. I'm taking it from the top here. It's just gonna take it.
I can show it to you right away. That's easier.
Well, I do have it. I do have it. So let me just go ahead and. Okay, and let me share my screen. Okay, so tell me what page you want.
72, if it's the markup version.
Okay.
If not, I'll give you the section.
That's okay. Does your page look like that?
Not at all. So it's section 202-42.
Let me just see what's that. 202, okay, it'll be right after this. 202-42.
Okay, then A1E.
Okay, let me scroll down to
At the
E.
bottom. You're right. You're there. You're there. You were there.
Oh, sorry. Oh, A1. I heard an E. Did you say E? Or
B is in
B?
boy. B as in
Gotcha.
boy.
Okay. Okay. Specify location of house sites. Building envelopes shall be tentatively located within the potential development area. House sites should generally be located not closer than 100 feet from primary conservation areas and 50 feet from secondary conservation areas, taking into consideration the potential negative impacts of residential development on such areas.
So a couple, actually, there's like 3 things in this particular one. It says specify location of house sites. That's the title of it or the beginning of it, but it's really specifying building envelopes.
Okay.
Correct?
I would think so, yes.
And if it says house site, it could be interpreted as you must build on this site, as opposed to you must build within this building envelope, which is what I believe what we intended to do with this particular rule.
Well, so I will say, Jeff, if it's possible, since you have 5 items that seems like a manageable amount, if it's possible for you to have sent it to that email address, because we have the Housing Oversight Task Force meeting tomorrow. So I think that you're right on, but my opinion isn't, you know, we have a 7-member task force, right? So the question will be posed to the 7-member task force. So I would say go ahead and write that up. It looks to me like you're on.
I just want to be clear that this was something that we had talked about, because my memory is that it was about building envelopes, not housing sites specifically.
Well, if we read the words that are there, it talks about building envelopes. So yeah. I think that putting whatever your questions are, and I think then the task force can talk about it when we have our 7-member group, because I'm just one person and, you know.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The other thing on this is the phrase shall be tentatively is inherently contradictory.
Shall be tentatively located.
Because shall is a directive, tentative is may do it or not do it.
Well, yeah, shall means you have to do it at least for a short period of time. Tentatively, shall means you have to do it. Tentatively says, but you don't have to do it permanently, right? So shall. So I'm okay. I'm personally okay with that, but it certainly does say it certainly does say that you can change it later, because it says tentatively, but if it's not permanent, then you can change it later. So it seems like it may not be achieving the point that needs to be achieved. But I think it's all worthy of. I think all your points are worthy of discussion at tomorrow's meeting, if you have them documented and to the ID by then.
I'll do that. So I just wanted to thank you for letting me just pursue what their process is. Thank you.
Yes, and whoops, I need to go back here. Sorry. And whenever I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment, because it's blocking. The thing was blocking what I need to see. Okay, yes, so the ID to send your input to is zoning updates, all one word, zoning updates with an S at the end, at woodstockny.org. And I would say, even though we haven't talked about each of your inputs, I would say you can say this should be added to the zoning revision committee set of inputs, because you're responding as a zoning revision committee person. So,
okay. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So that's Jeff, and I'll get to Ed's is going to take the longest, I think. So that's why I'm going around the room to others. So Jude, did you have things? I know you're on the ZBA as well as the ZRC. Do you have inputs? Well, do you have inputs that I'm just kind of curious how you would like your inputs to be, whether you want to submit your inputs both as a ZBA member and a ZRC member, or are you like picking and choosing? Well, some of your inputs will go as ZBA and some will go as ZRC, or what do you want to have be your ZRC input? And do you have any confusion about whether you should send the same input to, you know, as both, you know, places, or what your thoughts are?
ZBA will have an input as a group. And I can make my remarks here tonight. I can make them to the ZBA too. I'm not sure what you're asking me, but I do have a question that's kind of important.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the schedule of area and bulk regulations. I see that there was some language change. And so in residential, I'll just take the first one, R8, it says one dwelling per 8 acres. What do we consider a dwelling?
Is it in the definitions?
Well, I'm asking for the specific because it shows up in here and I would like an explanation. Does that include those 2 accessory apartments that people want to allow? Or are the 2 accessory apartments need an additional 16 acres?
So I'm going to need to go find the dwellings. So there are definitions, and let me.
Well, I would think an accessory apartment would be a dwelling. I mean, currently under the law, the accessory apartment is considered a dwelling.
Yeah, well, let me, I'm going to definitions. So. And
I guess cottage is not considered a dwelling, but an accessory apartment.
Well, I'm in the definitions, and I'll share my screen. I'm guessing it's in there because
it's not, Laura. Actually, I'm noticing it's not.
Oh, so we need a definition of dwelling if it's not in there. Well, so definitions are in more than one place. Yeah, there is. I did find it. So hang on just a second. Because there are definitions that we have 2 articles in one of the articles, and they both have a definitions. So the dwelling definition, page 304, a building designed or used principally as the living quarters for one or more families. And Jude, does that definition help, or does that definition still leave confusion?
I would just like some clarification because I know there was a proposal to allow 2 up to 1,500 square feet accessory apartments for each parcel. So does that mean if I have 15 acres in a 5-acre zone, I can have those 3 dwellings, or does it mean I have a 5-acre parcel and I can have those 3 dwellings? It's pretty important. To me, it's not clear which it is.
Right. So, right. So if a building gets designed, or if a dwelling, we'll call it a dwelling, because an accessory apartment, I guess, then could be a dwelling because it's used principally as living quarters for one or more families. So perhaps, well, I guess I'll just make a note here. Dwelling definition needs.
Or it's a building. It's a single building, a building. So if it is a dwelling, if with an accessory apartment, that's one building with an accessory apartment, that's the same building.
Well, there you go. So that's right. If you re-look at it, a dwelling is a building designed, used principally as living quarters. But that would mean that would mean a townhome or a 2-family building would still be one building. Would it still be then one dwelling?
Yep.
Well, accessory apartments can be either attached or detached. I would imagine a 1,500 square foot accessory apartment is more likely to be detached than attached. So that makes it a separate building that is then occupied as a residence.
And then would it then be a dwelling? Okay.
Should be a dwelling. So this is where I'm not clear on what is being changed. I mean, I understand the 1,500 square feet. I understand all of that, but my question is, if I'm on an 8-acre parcel and it says one dwelling per 8 acres, does that mean I get one dwelling? If I want an accessory, those 2 accessory apartments.
My understanding, Jude, is that the building, so you can have one dwelling, which is your main residence. You can have one attached ADU, which is part of that same building, and one detached ADU, which is a separate building. So you end up with 2 buildings, one the main building with one attached ADU and one with a detached ADU at the most. That's my understanding of what the intention of the law was. Whether or not that says that, that's what, I don't know.
But I think, Jude, I think that you have a point. Here's what I think your point is, and if I'm correct and this is what your point is, then I agree with it. So the way it reads, a dwelling is a building designed or used principally as the living quarters for one or more families. If an accessory apartment I think we're not calling apartments anymore. I think we're calling it ADU, accessory dwelling unit. If an accessory dwelling unit is detached, it then is a separate building. And does that make it a separate dwelling because it's detached? So the dwelling definition probably should say something about whether or not detached accessory dwelling units are considered dwellings, or are they considered part of the main dwelling on the site. So I believe that you have a point, because as I read this, I believe there's room for confusion.
So can I suggest that the comment be, because this is what I think we want to say, right? That in the definition of a dwelling, a detached accessory dwelling unit is not considered a separate dwelling. It's part of the definition of dwelling.
And we should clarify that in the definition, otherwise it's open for confusion, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
May I go on?
You did. Okay. Are we getting your point okay, or are we missing your point?
Well, you're getting my point, but I think there's more to it than my point.
Okay.
My point is it's unclear, but I basically skimmed all of these pages, and I didn't go through line by line because I disagree with the basic premise that these drastic changes are going to create affordable housing. I think what's going to happen if this is implemented is you're changing the essential character of the town. It's going to become suburban, urban, rather than rural. It's going to affect traffic. It's going to affect noise. It's going to affect water, which is a huge issue in some parts of town. It's going to affect runoff. It's going to affect privacy. It's going to affect septic. It is such a huge, drastic change to what we have now. In some cases, you're quadrupling the density. You're tripling the density. 1,500 square feet is larger than many houses in Woodstock right now. And you are allowing a property to have 2 of those in addition to a main house. I'm beside myself with these proposals. There is no guarantee anywhere that any of these will be affordable. I just did a quick search on the assessment rolls, and right now there are 260 LLCs out of 1,176 parcels in town. So that's 22% of the parcels in town are owned by technically a business. And I am just very concerned that we're going to become a magnet for investors. I'm reading all of these articles about there's something called arrived homes that Amazon is creating, which is I can put in $100 and I can be part of this real estate investment group that purchases rental properties. So I am just so concerned about the density changes that are proposed here with no guarantee that anything is going to become affordable, because we're not seeing anything. Things that used to be affordable in Woodstock aren't even close to affordable now because they're being snapped up for investment and for second homes and for short-term rentals. Short-term rentals, in my opinion, have destroyed the real estate market in this town. No young person can afford to buy a house anymore unless they're already wealthy. I have such a concern about the increased density in every area of these proposals. I'm out in Willow. It's still rural. There are still some parcels that could, be increased density by 10 times, tenfold. I think the town has to take a very hard look if this is where we want to go. If we want to become, Dorchester, Westchester, Long Island, do we really want to change the character of the town to that degree when nobody can tell me that this is going to create affordable housing? The other thing is I feel like these methods of creating affordable housing are outdated. They're outdated because the climate changed. This is not what we're seeing anymore. I don't see these. I see this as just increasing density. There's nothing. We just have so many people in town who basically want to make a killing, and we're going to attract more of them. So,
okay. Okay. So I was making notes as you talked, and the one thing that I didn't get a full note on There are 260 LLCs out of how many parcels?
1,176. So that's
Out of 1,100. I'm sorry. 1,174 parcels, 260.
1,176.
1,176. Okay. So let me just make sure I heard you right. 1,176 parcels, 260 are owned by LLCs.
LLC. And, you know, and I think that is increasing. You know, people are coming to town and businesses are coming to town. And if you look across the country, this is what's happening.
Okay, but I just want to make sure my notes are correct. My numbers are correct. 1,176 parcels, 260 owned by LLCs already.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing is, I mean, if you're going to consider, unless somebody is going to get funding to specifically create affordable housing, with the cost of building right now, it's hard to imagine somebody's going to decide to have an affordable rent out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. So let me go. I'm coming back out. So Jude, was there more that you wanted to include as part of the ZRC answer to this document?
Yeah, pretty much said it. I mean, I think across the board, the increases in density are very, very impressive.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let me go to, and I'm going to do Ed, because Ed sent his letter. I was going to go to Ed's letter in a couple of minutes. So David, did you have things that you wanted to say? Any thoughts you wanted to share about the proposed law?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. That's fine. Connor, did you have anything that you want to say about the proposed law?
Well, not that hasn't really been said by Jude already. I mean, a lot of again, not to pat myself on the back, but I ran a campaign against, you know, our fast moving acceptance of STRs in this town. And again, I know it is, I mentioned this last time, while it's not in our purview to address the cap and the fact that, you know, it could still be raised or lowered.
Mm-hmm.
I look through all the discussions and all the questions we've asked. I don't think we've gotten a very satisfactory answer on the vehicle by which, even if we were to accept the density changes, which in the right context I could be on board with, again, if they were of a certain scope, if they did conform to the aesthetic and the character of the community, of how we would guarantee that those new creations would not only be affordable, but guaranteed to remain long-term rentals.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I know I have a small, you know, what I want to know is that, you know, if, excuse me, sorry, I have something in my throat. Bear with me. So I can use myself as a personal example. I have 3 3/4 acres. I have a small mother-in-law apartment that I used to live out of, and I choose to let friends stay there full time. You know, I could make a lot of more money applying for an STR, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. Given the opportunity, I wouldn't. But I need to know that there's more than just the goodness of my heart, you know, that will not just buoy and make, you know, soft incentives, but say in order to be applicable, there have to be guarantees. I'd love to build an A-frame out in my you know, nested into the woods, keep it out of sight from the road and all that, and give someone else a place to live. You know, I mean, that's a whole nother that's what I want to do myself. But again, I have concerns about how we account for how these properties are being used and how we can maintain guarantee and maintain their affordability.
Right. And that they're long-term rentals. So that's it's a valid question, and we should mull on that. I think that I do think, as a member of the Housing Oversight Task Force, we were looking for ways to make it easier to create affordable and long-term rentals. And the law still is people can only have one STR, or any one entity can only have one STR, and an LLC is owned by a person. So theoretically, if a person owns 3 LLCs, they only get one STR because they're the same person, even though they own 3 LLCs. So theoretically, the STR, that law that says one person can only have one, theoretically would help. But it's worthy of thought, I think, in terms of the point of, will we become another Long Island? Will we become another Westchester County? Because if we're allowing more building, maybe everybody will flock to up here and decide this is where, so I think it's worthy of some thought by the Housing Oversight Task Force. I think that's a question. How are we guaranteeing creation? I think our thought was you have supply and demand. If the supply goes up, then the price goes down, unless all of a sudden the demand is going up at the same time. So how do we?
Can I interject there?
Yes.
Sorry to bring television into the conversation, but there was a great episode of Last Week Tonight, the John Oliver newscast on rent, just on rent. And he brought up the same point that, for example, if you look, and again, I promise I'm going to circle back to this, but if you look out there, a incredible number of rentals nationally are owned by a handful of companies. And when you look into what they are saying, not even behind closed doors, they see these rising prices not as something to be worked around and mitigated, but as like a wave to catch. Like they are raising their prices because the market says, because I am throwing up air quotes, I'm sorry, my camera is broke, but they get away with saying this is just market rate. I shouldn't feel bad. I'm not a bad Christian because I kicked my tenants out because they couldn't afford market rate. But ultimately, these are the decisions that are going to determine what market rate is. And I think, I don't want to speak for Jude. She's obviously, I love everything you brought to this, but I don't want to see any part of this determined by market rate or like leave it to the wind to determine, what affordability. If we increase supply, I just don't see how that targets the people that I think need the most help. I think that a target that just, again, it gives not an advantage, but it doesn't give any disadvantage to anyone with, their pockets lined to just come in, offer more. And even if we don't have guarantees in place, those people who do get in there and do maybe start off affordable, what is going to be the incentive to keep it affordable? And I mean, for me personally, it's that I house my friends.
Right.
Like they are people I love and I care about, and I'm invested in their personal success. That shouldn't be the standard. That can't be the standard by which we do this.
So, okay. Well, so I made a bunch of notes, and so the common theme is, how are we going to give everybody confidence that these updates will actually provide affordable housing? Because because we can't. I don't know if there's a legal, but this, again, the whole idea is we're going to share our input. The Housing Oversight Task Force will give thought to the input in our meeting tomorrow and probably future meetings. So that's the whole point of tonight, is for everybody to share what's on your minds with that.
And if I could add one more thing, because way earlier in the conversation around this, I mean, like years ago when we were starting to talk about the formation of this and how we might tackle the problem, one of the issues that came up was incentivizing the development. And again, how do we account for the affordability? What one of my questions might be is there a source of revenue, like a bond or some sort of grant program that the town may be able to pursue that would not indenture us to the state and relieve us of our agency to determine as a town who we target to be put in these affordable housing situations. So I know if we take certain state money, for example, then we completely relinquish that ability. Then we have to follow their standards, their guidelines. But I wonder, for the average homeowner who maybe wants to build one additional structure, and if we have a vehicle to say, like, you can apply for this program, you have to guarantee that this is only going to be for long-term rental for, I don't know, the course of let's say 30 years. I mean, just throwing a number out there, forget that. But from there, the question would be, can we as a town get money to sort of say, yes, if you do this, we can give you a bond, give you a tax break, something to help you develop this thing that would not jeopardize, again, our ability to target the people we feel need the most help by taking money from certain state agencies or whatever. So that's part of my question. And thank you. I yield the floor. I yield
the floor. Okay.
I yield the Zoom.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I know that Kirk and Deborah, but besides, I mean, there are two committees happening. One is the Housing Oversight Task Force, which is focused on the zoning law updates, but the other is the Woodstock Housing Committee, which is focused on not zoning updates, but focused on alternatives for how to help affordable housing. So some of the questions you're asking may be the purview of the Housing Committee, which is a different committee and doesn't have to do with zoning, but it's at the Housing Committee is looking for some opportunities. But I don't know if we have answers on that. But anyway, that's my thought. So we've been around the room, and I want to share, Ed, if it's okay with you, I'm going to share your email.
No, so don't do that. Let me read it.
Okay. Go ahead.
We decided early in this zoning revision committee that individual members, if they have a variant opinion about a decision, can make it public. And I intend to make my statement public.
Okay.
I think that an affordable, excuse me, here's my statement about this large package. I think that an outside affordable housing group, one with great expertise on creating actual affordable housing for people who work for the town, work for the county, or to area businesses, be brought in by the town to thoroughly evaluate section by section this massive packet of proposals. That this affordable housing group, say from Syracuse or maybe from Ithaca, examine the 329 pages of proposals and report back with an analysis on whether this group of proposals actually will achieve affordable housing for Woodstock in the long run, or whether the town is opening up our zoning districts to literally thousands of new units, and whether these zoning changes will actually create, from generation to generation to generation to generation, actually create affordable housing. The many residents of Woodstock who live in R1.5, R3, R5, R8, and also say in the Hamlet Preservation District and along the lands of Bearsville, Xena, and Wittenberg, they have a right to know what would happen to their zoning districts under a full or substantial build out, utilizing the proposed increased housing density proposed by this packet of zoning changes. And I'm talking about the actual calculated number of additional housing units that could be built in these zoning districts should this packet be voted into place. I must say that the Housing Committee ran its operation like it was protecting nuclear secrets. I hope that it has kept a clear record of who actually supplied input to its final product, and were there any recorded votes on specific issue. For instance, I note that there are suggested zoning changes not related to housing. I mean, is there a record of who suggested these, putting in these possible changes? In fact, is there a list of those who were allowed to propose text to the Housing Committee and what dates they did so? So to reiterate, I think that an outside affordable housing group, one with great expertise on creating actual affordable housing for people who work in the town, that this affordable housing group examine these 329 pages of report proposals and report back with an analysis on whether this group of proposals will actually achieve affordable housing. And one other thing, what Woodstock needs is a housing authority like Kingston successfully has had for many years. And a town-owned Woodstock Housing Authority could build a complex of tiny houses, for instance, imitating Ithaca or Syracuse, or could build some actual affordable housing that's then passed on to the next generation, and then to the next generation, and then to the next generation as affordable housing able to be afforded by those who have jobs in Woodstock. Nothing in the Housing Committee's packet, as I've seen, calls for a Woodstock Housing Authority. And the Woodstock Housing Authority could ensure that affordable housing is passed on generation to generation to generation. So to say it again, there's a need for a second examination. We should be carefully looking at this huge gathering of pages to try to answer whether this packet will actually create long-lasting affordable housing in the R15, R3, R5, light industrial, and other zoning districts. And small lot size does not automatically lead to affordability. Otherwise, why is the current average rent for an apartment in New York City $4,000 a month? And I've heard of houses renting out in Woodstock for up to $30,000 a month, as if Woodstock were the Hamptons. So my vote is to put this packet to a strong examination.
I completely agree with everything.
Okay.
Thank you,
So-
Ed.
So, and the reason why I asked, because I know you said, yeah, you started out by saying, and yet, yes, we did indeed agree in our reference document where we list our agreement of how we'll proceed, is if somebody in the committee has an independent opinion that's not supported by others, then yes, they can present their own opinion. I mean, it sounds like, I know Jude has concerns. I mean, there is a common theme between Jude's concerns and Connor's concerns, Ed, your concerns. So what I would like to do is create an email that actually does forward your email that says, here are some concerns, and then add in what Jude and Connor and Jeff has some things that he'll be providing separately, but include the fact that he's going to be doing that. So, I mean, I would like to have it, because I would like the zoning revision committee comments and concerns to be consolidated. And because I don't see a reason to have your concerns be just you by yourself, because I'm seeing Jude nod her head. I heard Connor say, yes, he agrees. So you're not out there all by yourself. There's a common theme of people that care a lot and want to be sure that this is really going to translate into affordable housing. I mean, the whole goal of it is that it will translate to affordable housing, but and I have a lot of respect for everybody on this call. I have a ton of respect for everybody on this call. So as you state your concerns that you're not sure if it will achieve the goal, I think that's worthy of extra thought by the Housing Oversight Task Force to say, so people don't, people that are very responsible citizens of Woodstock and have been around for a while and understand laws. Jude certainly does because she's on the ZBA. Ed certainly does because he wrote the zoning law. Connor certainly does. He's been on the planning board. So as you have the similar concern, I think it's worthy of the Housing Oversight Task Force thinking through those concerns. And maybe there's, again, we're going to meet tomorrow, but I think that the answer is that there are these concerns, and it's good for everybody for Deborah to have heard them firsthand, to be able to, think, they can be part of the group discussion tomorrow. So I heard Jeff's hand and then Jude's hand.
A couple things, and I apologize. I had to step out and do a library board meeting very quickly.
That's okay.
I heard Jude starting to talk about things, and I didn't obviously hear all of it. I didn't hear Connor speak. I heard the end of Ed. So a couple things I want to add, and this is primarily what Ed talked about. The zoning code does not address Woodstock Housing Authority. That's not something that's appropriate to zoning code. It's an independent agency. And there is a Woodstock Housing Authority, which has started as an independent, not-for-profit agency, just so you know. Secondly, the Kingston Housing Authority has so far opened up 0 houses. They've not been effective. They've bought houses, they've not been able to actually open them up and have people be there. So there are issues around housing authorities too that need to be managed properly. So it's not a blanket solution. The general idea behind what I believe the Housing Oversight Task Force is attempting to do was address the supply side of the equation. It's economics 101. We have a limited supply and a huge demand. That's what causes prices to go up, right? That's just a simple supply and demand equation. The idea principally is to have a supply that can be increased. And increasing the supply should then bring down the price. That's the basic intention. That's how we are attempting to do this. We cannot mandate pricing for housing. That's not part of what we can do in law, right? And we cannot mandate people build affordable housing. That's something that people have to choose to do. What we can do is make it possible for people to do it in a way that's profitable and worthwhile. That's what the intention of the law is. If you feel it doesn't achieve that, then let's critique the actual language of the law to get to the point that it actually works. Personally, I don't know how we get house prices down without increasing supply. That's the bottom line. So if you can think of a way to decrease prices without increasing supply, please let us know, because it would be a brilliant economics move. Never been done before.
Yeah, and I'll go to Jude in a second. But what was said while you were, and I know you had to go away and you let us know through your chat, and so thank you for letting us know that you had to go. But what was said was, what people said was that, we don't want to be another Westchester County or another Long Island, and in the city, prices are going up to like $4,000 a month apartments. So even though you might add the supply, and you could have smaller spaces, but there are other places within 90 miles of us who have astronomical prices. And that was the concern, because I said, you said it better than I did, honestly, but I did raise the point that the thought is we raise supply and the prices will go down. But other people on the call had spoken and said they were concerned that prices are still, people are going to go with the market rate. And as we all agree, we can't really control that. So the zoning law doesn't control that, but it does help increase the supply. But the worry is what I'm hearing is the worry is we could increase the supply and still have a problem with not having affordable housing. So that's what I heard. But anyway, that's what I heard. So Jude, I know you had your hand up.
Not sure where to begin. I think that somebody really, what Ed said was that we need to really look at what the potential is for the build out for what we're talking about. It is so massive. This is not a slight tweak. This is a massive change. And if it were to happen, how is that going to affect every aspect of quality of life in town? As I mentioned, water, noise, privacy, traffic, all of those things will change. So I think that really needs to be looked at. I also do think, I understand what you're saying, Jeff, but I think we're in a different world now. I think the demand is so high to be in this area. And if you just keep building, people are just going to keep coming, and I don't think the prices are going to go down. Nobody's seeing that around here. They happen to live in a very desirable area. And unless something is created very specifically with the intent for it to be affordable, it's not going to be. People are going to find a way to make money. So many corporations are buying up properties, they'll build properties, and they will charge exorbitant rents because they can. And I don't think that this is going to achieve affordable housing. I really, truly don't. Going back to, there's the whole other question of, yes, we only allow this, and yes, we only allow that. I can just tell you, I'm not impressed. And I don't mean to offend anyone by this, but I am not impressed at all with enforcement in this town. If someone in the town decides that they want to bring someone to court over some kind of violation, once they get there, things don't really happen. So I'm not counting on that end of it. I'm counting on the end of it. We need to have zoning for a reason. When the zoning law came into effect, that Ed so generously spent so much time creating, and people on the town board who were so brave to take it on, passed it. It was because there were development pressures. And those pressures exist now in a different way, but they still exist. And if we don't hold the line, we're going to see our town change in ways that nobody has been able to imagine. I mean, already it is happening. We're seeing it. I mean, I don't know if you read Rhinebeck. People are they're going crazy because of STRs and how it's changing the nature of residential neighborhoods. I try to think about parcels that I know about that could now have a 4-family unit. That is not a house in a neighborhood any longer. That's a house in a different kind of community. And I mean, there are places for them. I don't think they're in our rural areas, in our higher elevations. I just think this is this very broad brush. Let's just create all this housing, and then we'll have a lot of units and they'll be affordable. I don't see it that way. I see it as just going to be more and more people, and more and more wealth, and more people wanting to charge exorbitant prices. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thanks. And Jeff, you want to say something?
I mean, I just want to acknowledge that I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but yet that's not an answer. So do you have an answer for how to get housing prices down? Because otherwise we're stuck with where we are. If we don't do something different than we're doing now, nothing is going to change. And this is the best thing that we came up with. If you have a better idea, we're more than happy to hear it. And I don't know what a better idea is to bring housing prices down, because we can't control the market from a legislative point of view. We can only control it from a economics point of view. And that's how we're doing. And I hear you, but I don't know how else to do this. And
Well,
what are your suggestions?
Go ahead, Ed.
Well, I wonder if perhaps there is a way then to sort of create a pipeline. Again, just to address the thing, it seems to me like, again, I'm not disagreeing that we need to increase supply. I think that's, of course, part of the equation. I just wonder if this is the kind of thing where if we put the cart before the horse in this instance, if we're going to be able to ever catch up to it. Because if we have this housing authority that's being formed, its mission, and perhaps through it and the creation of a pipeline that says these type of units can be created when they follow this type of procedure, when they adhere to, I don't know, again, maybe you didn't hear me bring this up before, but I believe me and you had spoken at one point about different areas for maybe where this proposed housing authority could find money through grants and bonds that wouldn't necessarily prevent it from having agency over its ability to determine who gets the housing, where the housing is built, but that would give us some purview and ability to regulate that, not by writing into the zoning law that all of these things, but by having the zoning law just say, via this housing authority, under these conditions, these type of developments, this expansion of use could be facilitated, and then point to the mission of this housing authority, and that housing authority would then, you know, be the vehicle by which we increase the supply.
Can I just address Connor's, because I missed your comments earlier, Connor, because I was off the meeting at that point, and I appreciate your comments. And one, I just want to point out that one option that we've looked at, which is not a zoning thing, it's a legislative thing, is in Cambridge, any multifamily house has, the housing authority in Cambridge has right of first refusal on a purchase. So that's an option too that we could put in the legislation here. That's not a zoning thing, but it's a way of looking at right of first refusal for housing authority on any sale. They can then keep it affordable.
And I think, you know, again, finding a way to get in front, like if we, again, just to point out, not disagreeing that we have to increase supply. I just wonder how I could, where I'm at is it's hard for me to feel comfortable looking at the increasing of the supply before we have a vehicle for the mission of this entire endeavor. And that's what I again, not trying to speak for anybody, but that's what I feel is missing. I think that may be partly what Jude is expressing. I know you have more, you know, density questions maybe than I do, but my concern is, again, if we create the supply, I had mentioned, and I really suggest everyone go watch this episode of Last Week Tonight. It's on YouTube for free. It's John Oliver talking about rent, and you see these guys who buy up these properties, and they say, you know, on the talk shows, well, it's just the market value, you know, I don't need to feel bad about kicking my tenants out for that. But then when they go to the, you know, I don't know what it is, like the Landlord Expo, Mega Landlord Expo, they're like, yeah, markets are going up, and we see an opportunity to raise them even higher. And, you know, that's, again, you know, without having the vehicle in front of this increase of supply, that's what I think has to, if not be written into the zoning law, be what the zoning law points to as the I keep saying vehicle, but as the means by which someone could get access to this expansion of use and this new expansion of development.
I saw Ed has his hand up.
Yes. Well, this is the second major housing person in town I've heard deprecate the Kingston Housing Authority. But in many ways, Kingston is a much more advanced town in dealing with affordable housing. I mean, the Kingston, you can go online and dig up all you want to know about the history of the Kingston Housing Authority. What Woodstock needs is a town-owned housing authority that builds affordable housing that stays affordable generation after generation. But regarding this massive packet of upzoning in so many zoning districts, I intend I mean, this will be brought to the town board. The town board is going to be the ones that have to face the music on this giant packet. And I think there needs to be an outside top rank affordable housing group hired to investigate and go section by section of this large upzoning and see if it really will create affordable housing. And second, to do a build out analysis of what happens if a substantial or even a significant portion of these properties or take advantage of this upzoning, what will mean to the Woodstock has increased in the last 10 years, 56 people. I think it's 6,000 maybe and something, but it's only increased. But you pass a massive upzoning, it's possible to add 1,000 or 2,000 of residents of the town of Woodstock. So I think we need an outside, good quality, affordable housing group to examine what would happen if this upzoning is passed. And we need a town-owned housing authority.
Yeah, okay. Just a second, Jude. Okay, go ahead, Jude.
I know this question has come up before where there's the housing task force and there's another entity and they're not related, but they need to be related. These two things are not separate. So to say that the zoning changes are not related to whatever else is going on, whatever they're trying to do, it should be related to this, because right now the zoning changes are not any guarantee of anything affordable, only of increased density. And what Ed is talking about, I've said, I haven't really said this publicly, but our short-term rental permits should be far more expensive. People are making money off the backs of the town and the residents who are inconvenienced, many residents who are inconvenienced by these short-term rentals. So the town should be able to earn a significant amount of money from those permits. The other thing that could happen, and I don't know the mechanics of this, but there could be a transfer tax, just like there is in New York City, on properties that are sold over $1 million. And that money, all of that money, could be put towards creating some affordable housing. And I know that is a massive undertaking. The town does not have the personnel to do that. But maybe if the goal is to really create affordable housing, and that it's saying that it's passed on for generations to generation, and that it's guaranteed, that may be what needs to be happening. Because, and I know that is a massive undertaking, but I do think the resources exist. And I know there was a conversation about town can collect money to preserve open space. And there's, whether or not it can also be collected to create affordable housing. I don't know the answer to that. But those are the areas that need to be looked at, and not just changing the zoning law to create all this housing that nobody knows will or can guarantee will be affordable. And I don't see it. And I don't even think that anybody from the presentation I saw that Deborah and Kirk, nobody said affordable housing. They used some other term. Nobody said it was going to be affordable. So even this committee hasn't said that.
Well, we're using a term, I know I'll get to you in a sec, Jeff. So we've been using a term, I think the thought is that affordable housing has perhaps some negative connotations. And so we were using a different term that talked about sustainable, I think it was
opportunity housing.
Opportunity housing. So we didn't use the word affordable because we thought that people might think projects or and that's why we purposefully we're using a term that we thought would not have any negative connotation. So that was all on purpose. So anyway, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things. Jude, I agree with you. STRs need to be regulated a different way. I believe that we should actually ban STRs other than for actual residences for a 6-month limit period. I think that's the easiest way to do it. You can only STR, your primary residence, for up to 6 months. I think that would be the easiest way to deal with it and be done with it. None of these, ADR, and we didn't address that in the zoning code because that's a different group that's handling that. And I think we can talk with that group and hopefully get them to to do the right thing there too. I think there was, but I keep coming back to, I don't know how to drop prices without increasing supply. I just don't know how to do it. And, the housing authority, Woodstock Housing Authority, whether it's a public or private or public-private entity, yes, we need that. We need something like that that can take ownership of houses and keep them affordable generationally. And that's something that we need to have in the town too. But that, I think, can go along with the increased supply, where some of that increased supply can be put into the housing authority bucket that's going to be affordable forever. Without an increased supply, where do we get those houses that are going to be affordable forever? So we all want the same thing, and that's where we start from in this discussion. We all want the same thing. Is how do we get there? And hopefully we can work together to come up with a strategy to try to get there that includes zoning changes, includes maybe a new focus within the town government of being able to purchase or to have a public-private partnership to purchase affordable housing and to keep them affordable forever. And maybe changing how we do STRs to be, in my sense, more rational. To me, STRs destroy neighborhoods unless they're done correctly, which to me an STR should just be a short term, I'm going to Florida for 6 months, I want to rent my house. But that's what I think it should be. And we need to work on those things.
When I did run, although it feels like forever ago, I didn't see the utility in having non-owner occupied STRs.
I agree. Yeah.
It just, people want to come and shed these salty tears about, well, I can't afford to live here if I don't have my second home in the city and rent this out on the weekends. Well, I don't see why, you couldn't long-term rent that and get your money's worth. But if that's the case, maybe you should be the one going on Airbnb and renting from a locally owned resident on the weekends that you are here. But that's neither here nor there. I just want to add that my sort of one sentence summary of where I'm at is that I know that not everything is within our purview as a zone within the code. I know we have to see an increase in density. I believe we have to see an increase in density. That means increase in supply. I just don't think we can do that effectively and to the goals that you said we all want to achieve if we do it agnostic of essentially, for lack of a better word, the mission of a housing authority. Like if we don't have something that pipelines that effort, it's hard for me to see how the increase in supply on its own. I totally agree with you. It's part of the recipe, but I think we need more. And as a citizen outside of this board, I think we can't do it agnostic of the other. They have to be in concert.
Okay.
One last thing. I was also on the planning board for a number of years.
And I was on the planning board for a number of years. So we have something in common, a bunch of us here.
Not just with you.
Yeah. So, okay. So a lot of well-said thoughts have come out. Now I know the way my calendar is because I still have, I'm still juggling more than one job, as people know, and I still have to do day job stuff after this meeting. I want to document this, and it may or may not be documented before 10 o'clock tomorrow. So I guess my question to Deborah and Kirk, who I know have been doing a great job of being, quiet in the background as all these thoughts have come forth. How much do you need me to document before 10 o'clock tomorrow? Because you were here to hear everything. And how much if I document it after 10 o'clock tomorrow morning? And you certainly have heard everything, and it's a lot of food for thought. and a lot of people who, again, I respect everybody on this call, and everybody cares about Woodstock and doing the right thing. And then the question is, so Kirk and Deborah, you've heard this firsthand, as has Jeff, and the three of us are part of the four of us are part of Housing Oversight Task Force. So we'll have an interesting conversation tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, I'll just say very quickly, and Kirk can jump in. So I really appreciate hearing what you all said. I mean, that's the purpose of putting out something that's not a final document, that's really looking for the kind of input and feedback from the community from a variety of perspectives. So, so thank you for, and thank you for inviting us to come and listen.
You're welcome.
I see this as a conversation. I think I heard some really good questions and interesting perspectives and things that have to be considered. And I can say that we are looking forward to considering everything that we're hearing very seriously. So I just want to say that. And as far as tomorrow, Laura, I mean, I've taken notes. I've been trying to be very methodical. I'm sure I missed some things, but I wouldn't break your back to try and get all of this transcribed by tomorrow. We'll be fine. We have other comments that have come in as well from a couple of other committees. Everything is going to that email, and that we'll be discussing. So I think we're in a good shape to discuss tomorrow, just generally the themes and the issues that have been raised, and that I think it'll help us to proceed. We're very fortunate to have consultants that we hired with a grant that we wrote, who's incredibly experienced, working in many communities in upstate and rural communities, working on housing, working on zoning, and actually working with diverse committees, et cetera. And so, you know, we thoroughly will, you know, consider everything. And so tomorrow will be a good opportunity for us to sort of recap what we're hearing and share it with the group, and then hear what everybody else's input is at that point, and on the process as we go forward. We're not done. We're not done.
Oh, we're not. Yeah, boy, that's the truth.
So I just wanted to say that.
Is that a public meeting?
It's a task force meeting. We're basically in the middle of deliberations. So it's like really hard to do all that and then be answering questions all the time.
No.
We are meeting again with the town board
Yes.
on the 19th and have a question and answer. We're gonna have lots of opportunity
I
for
went
public
outside
back and forth.
a long time looking for you.
Yeah. So Kirk, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Wait.
No, I don't really have anything more to add. I appreciate being here this evening and listening to everyone. It's very important to hear what people have to say. And I echo everything that Deborah's saying, that we welcome all of this. This is great. And so we're really, and we see it as a conversation, as an ongoing conversation. And as there's another conversation going on in the background somewhere. But
yes, there is.
So multiple conversations going on, as there would be for housing. So it's kind of an interesting metaphor.
And this is why I'm mused.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, it's great to be here, everyone. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And it's really good because since we have our meeting tomorrow, I mean, it's great because as I did mention, we've got 4 of us, because Jeff and Deborah and Kirk and I are all part of Housing Oversight Task Force. So there's 4 of the 7-member task force will have heard this message firsthand as we to be thinking about it as we have our discussions tomorrow, and we'll see where that goes. You know, and as both Kirk and Deborah have said, the conversation continues, and I love the way Deborah put it. We didn't put out a final document; we put out a draft document so that the conversation could begin. So that's very well said, and a lot of food for thought. From everybody. And as I know I've already said several times already, is I respect everybody on this call, and everybody comes from everybody on this call comes from a place of caring about Woodstock, and everybody on this call comes from a place of different expertises based on the different committees we've all served on. So there's a lot of experience and talent and knowledge on this call, plus a lot of people that really care. So, and that's what it takes to get where we need to get, is that combination of experience and talent and caring. So we're not there yet, but we've got a lot more to think about to get us to the right place. So Ed, back to a question I've asked you before, and let me just make sure I'm clear on the answer. When I do document what the ZRC's position, I would like to take your document you sent me and forward it, and then add on what others said, instead of trying to paraphrase and transcribe, because I think that what you wrote, and you're welcome to communicate it individually any way you choose to communicate it, but I think that what you wrote belongs as part of the ZRC official answer, because it is a well thought out response. It is a, it's an opinion of a very important member of our zoning revision committee. So I would like your permission to forward that, and then add into my email what else got covered besides what you said.
That's fine with me. You can use it however you want.
Okay.
I mean, I wrote it seriously, so.
Oh, I know you did, and I know it was well thought out. And as you know, Ed, I love working with you. I love working with everybody on this call, but I love working with you because you have so much. Let's see, I have a distraction there. So, but you have so much experience, and you have so many great thoughts, and you have a perspective that's very broad and rolls a lot of things into it. So I do know it was well thought out, that what you wrote. So, okay.
So Laura, just to be clear that the document you're forwarding from Ed is Ed's document, not the zoning review, not the.
Well, I'm going to forward Ed's document as a part of the zoning revision committee input. I mean, we're not voting yet. I mean, one option is we could, as the zoning revision committee, say, do we as a committee want to vote on what Ed said? Do we want to vote on what Ju said? Do we want to vote on what Connor said? We as the zoning revision committee could vote on all those things, or we could say, these are the concerns that were raised by the zoning revision committee, and just let the Housing Oversight Task Force consider them. And in my opinion, I think everything everybody said deserves consideration, without us saying, hey, we've all endorsed everything that was said here. So I'll try to put the feedback forward to say, we didn't vote on anything. However, there were some common themes, because some of what Ed said, Jude also said, and Connor also said. So we definitely had common themes. Ed wasn't the only one to, with the thoughts.
I just want to make sure that that we don't present it as the zoning revision committee voted on these things and approved these things. I totally feel it's appropriate that each person's concerns should be reflected, and thoughts should be reflected, as long as it's clear that these are, thoughts
it's not
that
a consent.
more people have, but have not been voted on by the entire committee. I just want to make sure.
So ZRC did not vote. So this is not a consensus of the ZRC, but are concerns raised by ZRC members.
Yeah. Which I think is what we did here, right? I think that's.
Yeah, yes, that is what we did here.
Yeah.
And let me just make my notes here. Okay. Is there anything else anybody else wants to say on the topic? I know we in a perfect world, we keep our meetings to an hour, but in a real world, we sometimes go an hour and a half, and we're not quite at the hour and a half mark. But we've used up we're on our way there. So I think we've covered the main things. I don't want to cut us off if people still have things to say. Is there anything else people want to say about this topic? Okay.
I had a very quick thing, and we don't have to extrapolate on this at all. It's just mainly for Deborah and Kirk, if they're still there. I've recently come to appreciate the awesome power of Microsoft Excel, and I just wonder, once all these changes, the zoning, the development schedules, everything is up, if there might be a way to create a document that is interactive, where people could go plug in their property information, the district they're in, the size of their lot, and see how they can participate in this program. There maybe you have another venue for that already, but I do know some, and again, it's not like crazy software development, but I do know some people who have put together some incredibly complex forms in Excel that allow them to kind of filter this information in a way that's easy for the public to interact with. And I'm not saying I have an understanding of how we get there. I've seen it, but I just wanted to put it out there because I saw someone do something recently with this where they were putting in varied information. It would filter them to all the applicable changes that they could participate in. And I thought I would just share that as a thought for when you guys are done, as a way of putting something out there that people can get their fingers around.
Connor, can I ask for some clarifications of that? Are you talking about subdivision parts of the code? Or are you talking about ADU parts of the code, or both?
Yeah, exactly. Essentially everything. The idea being that, like, again, I can only give you my information. Like, someday I want to build another thing on my property that would allow me to have a second long-term rental. I want to be able to provide more housing. I live in District X. My lot size is this big, and I have XY maybe on my deed, and then whatever those parameters are for, and maybe we break it up again by subdivision versus what can be done on a single lot that at this point is under 5 acres for me. But that's just, again, it's just a broad strokes suggestion to say, like, I know some people who are very good with Excel who could put that kind of thing together with the information that's in, say, I'm gonna pull it up right now, in your housing summary of changes. And I just thought, oh, that would be really cool if people could plug in their own information into that type of a file. You make it available on a website and people can see how they can participate, how they can essentially help.
I see it used in two different ways, Connor, just to be clear on this. I think that subdivision is one way of using it, that kind of a tool where you can say I have X amount of acres. Of that, Y amount of the X acres is streams, buffers, wetlands, et cetera, and that gives me, Z usable acres, which then I could say what the zoning code is, what the zoning region is, and that could tell you how many you could put there. That's one way to do that with an Excel thing. That's kind of different than what I can do on a single property, single lot, which is a separate way of looking at it. And the single lot is actually simpler because my understanding of what we've done is you get up to 2 ADUs, one attached, one detached, period, in all lots.
So then I guess that would be more applicable for subdivisions in that case. But it might even have a calculator in there to determine for example, the conservation easement that may apply in those cases, and give people an idea of what they're looking at. So again, I don't want this to be a whole road, but just to kind of give you a little seed of a thought of how you can make this approachable for people.
I just want to say, Connor, that what you said is basically some of the exercises we did during the development of this process. As we looked at different lots in the community and said, okay, given this size lot, given this much of it is wetlands, this much of it is streams, et cetera, this is what you can build.
But I think what Connor's saying is if you had a development team, if you had an Excel spreadsheet and somebody who set it up and somebody that knew all the law, then somebody could plug in, here's my property, and have you pop out an answer. Is this my day job? I'm a professional project manager for teams that build applications for people that need something, hey, I want this, can you automate it? And they build something that pops out an answer. So I think I understand that's what Connor's saying. It would be great to have some tool where you could say, hey, here's the attributes of my property. Can you pop out an answer about what can I do about subdivisions, ADUs, this, that, and the other thing? Connor, I wouldn't hold my breath on that, because we're not a development team, and I don't see us as being, I think in a perfect world, we would have a tool like that. In the real world, we're just trying to get a law out at the moment. So I wouldn't hold my breath, but I like your thinking. I like your vision, and you're thinking about the possibilities of what could be done. But I don't see the purview
This
of
is
this.
for, again, just a seed of a thought for once this is all done, because I think, again,
It actually is pretty simple to do, Laura, anyway, because it's, if you have an X acre lot, X divided by 2 must be conservation. X divided by 2, then divided by the R rating, the zoning.
exactly. And again, all that can be
It's
worked
actually pretty
ahead. I
simple.
didn't want to make a big tangent. Just before the thought left my head, I wanted to share it with people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it sounds like Jeff Jeff is a very smart guy. I've learned. I've worked with Jeff on a lot of things. So he may be able to whip this thing up in his spare time. So well, it's a good seed of a thought. So Jude, I see your hands up.
2 minutes. Just wondering if anybody has looked at how many accessory dwelling units there are in the town, how many of them are being rented, how many of them being used by family members, and what the rents are being paid.
That's a good question, Jude.
Get that information, but that would be valuable to know. I know we had somebody coming to the ZBA, and they wanted to build an accessory apartment, and it was for a family member. So I'm just sort of curious what we have now, how it's being used.
I think it's a good question, Jude. I think that what I've seen in town and what is that our previous use of ADUs as long-term rentals disappeared. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do, is to make them back again somehow. Yeah.
Yes. So
No,
I don't have.
I remember what the point of it was when they were.
Yeah. So I right. I don't have an answer. I don't know whether we have that answer handy. But that would be an interesting thing to know. So I'm watching my clock, and the witching hour, because I don't like to go over an hour and a half. Do I have any? Does anybody a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, Jeff, second.
So moved.
Yay, Connor, all in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Good night,
Sorry, I gotta run.
Okay,
you guys.
thank
You
you,
have a wonderful
everybody.
weekend. Thank you, Kirk
Excellent.
and Deborah. I'll see you soon.
Excellent conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.